Well, if you are a Gen Z man looking how to make sense in life, author, rapper, and social media personality Zuby has 12 pieces of advice for you. I'm going to roll through all 12 of these. Now, I've been working with young men, particularly college students, for 20 years now, and I want to look at a lens from the scripture and try to see whether these 12 pieces of advice from Zuby are something that you should follow. And be sure to let me know in the comments which of these 12 you are or maybe are not applying, or maybe which ones you would like to apply. Let's start with piece of advice number 1, where Zuby says that you should master something useful. Now, I think that's great advice, perhaps because I see a lot of young men who are devoting themselves to something that is less than useful. Let's say you decided to devote yourself to becoming masterful at something like Fortnite or some other video game. You know, there may be a select few people who that becomes their profession and it's very financially profitable for them, but for most of us, we're just going to be wasting our time trying to master something like that. As I'm making this video, it's 2025, and in the United States, the trades, be that construction, be that plumbing, be it electrical, there are tons of opportunities if you will begin to apply yourself and develop a master skill in one of those areas. Proverbs 12:11 says this: "Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense." So I think that's great advice. Master something useful. Piece of advice number 2 from Zuby is to get in excellent physical shape. And again, I'm on board. I would say unless you've got some physical ailment keeping you from doing so, you should pursue excellent physical fitness. I think we can make a scriptural case for this as well. For example, 1 Corinthians 9:27 says, "But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." If you devote yourself to physical fitness, there are going to be a ton of benefits for you. 1, you're going to have more energy, you're going to feel better. 2, you're going to have more confidence. You're going to feel better as you meet people, as you take opportunities. You're going to have a sense of boldness and confidence in your life. And also, if you're a young man right now, the physical foundation that you have in your life in your 20s is going to be a foundation for your health in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. So I want to take my health seriously when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, now that I'm in my 40s, trying to stay in shape so that it will reap rewards, not just now, but later on in my life as well. So get a gym membership, go a couple times a week, or buy some used equipment on Facebook Marketplace, or find some used fitness equipment elsewhere. That's what I've primarily done. I've filled my basement with all sorts of fun workout stuff, and I try to change it up and make it something that I really enjoy. Rule number 3, Zuby says you should live by God's law. Now here I am in total agreement. Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." We are living in a culture that has rejected God's authority. One of the things I think is interesting, if you were to do a 12-step program, something like Alcoholics Anonymous or Sexaholics Anonymous, one of their steps is that you would submit to a higher power, because they realize when we submit ourselves to a greater authority, it's going to have tremendous impact in our lives. If I live under God and submit myself under God's authority, then it means what I do matters. I have accountability. It means that I can do things that will reap rewards eternally. It also means that how I treat others is God is watching me in that, and there's some accountability to how I go about my day. Live by God's law. Live as if God exists. Let me challenge you, if that's not a part of your life, open the scripture. Ask somebody who knows the Lord. Ask somebody who's following God if they could help you see if that's something that you want to do as well. If you're getting value out of this video, please hit that like button as we continue. All right, a piece of advice number 4, he says that you should go on an adventure. Now, I think that's good advice, and he's primarily talking about the idea of a rite of passage. Cultures used to have a rite of passage for men, something you had to accomplish in order to take that step from adolescence to boyhood. In our culture, we tend not to have that, and we often see extended adolescence where young men never realize, at what point do I become a man? When you talk about adventure, I think of Abraham, who God called Abraham to leave everything he knew and to sojourn in the wilderness, to follow him. Abraham took a tremendous adventure. I think following Christ is the adventure of a lifetime. You have no idea what may come as you pursue and follow the Lord. Lamentations 3:27 says, "It is good for a man that he bear the yoke in his youth," that you step out, that you take some large burden or large task, large accomplishment. Go on an adventure. Let me know in the comments, what do you think would be a good adventure for men to step out from adolescence into masculinity here in our culture? Number 5, piece of advice for young men is to not make life-altering mistakes. And here Zuby references a number of things. Have a baby outside of wedlock. Take tremendous financial debt. commit a crime or something that would get you arrested, and then you would either spend time in prison or have a permanent record. Well, Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender." And one of the things that he reminds you here is that if you've already stumbled in one of these areas, to not get overwhelmed, realize you can overcome a mistake. Even throughout the scripture, there's grace for when we make mistakes. We know we will make mistakes. All right, number 6 is that we should learn about Bitcoin. Now, there are a number of scriptures that talk about saving and investing, and here he's primarily saying that the future coming will probably be different, than the last 60 to 70 years when it comes to investing. That things like cryptocurrency are new emerging markets, things that you probably want to have some understanding of. I personally have not bought any Bitcoin. Let me know in the comments, do you think that's a good idea? All right, number 7, take yourself seriously. Now, I like this. We often hear that phrase, dress for success. If you go around looking like a slob, if you dress like a slob, then I think you are going to have a slovenly attitude, and that is how people are going to view you. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, "Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth." Now here, that's primarily talking about a pastor in Timothy, that he would handle the scriptures well, that he would take it seriously. But I like Zuby's advice that you take yourself seriously, that you dress in a professional manner, that you present yourself in a way that others are going to take you seriously and give you opportunity. And then I think here, number 8 is similar. It says, work hard and smart. Proverbs 13:4 says, "The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied." He wants to give us some advice here that working hard is not enough, but we've got to work smart. He says that we can outperform other people simply by doing the little things. Now, when I headed to college, I had an older man give me some advice. He said, if you go to class and you do your homework, then you will do just fine. But it was amazing to me to see how many young men did not do those things. They skipped class, they wouldn't do their homework, or maybe now in 2025, you're using AI to do all of your homework. But see, it is going to be those little things that make you stand out. It's going to be those little things that make a tremendous impact in who you are and who you become. All right, number 9, he says, use social media for good. And in general here, he's reflecting that most people are using social media really to veg. We scroll, we scroll, we scroll. He's saying we can use social media for networking, to find some opportunities, but you don't want it to be something that just wastes your time and wastes your life. Now, I couldn't find a passage of scripture about using social media. I think we could think of lots of passages of scripture about using our time well or something like that. Number 10, avoid losers and degenerates. Now, there's a clear scriptural case to be made here. Proverbs 13:20 says, "Whoever walks with wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." This is great advice. You will tend to become like the people you hang out with. If you look at the people you're around, if they're overweight, if they're lazy, if they complain all the time, pretty good chance that's what you're going to become too. If you look at those you're around, if their marriages go well, if they're raising their children in a way that is really good, if they're making wise financial decisions, then it's likely you are going to do the same. So look at who is around you and decide, are these the type of people that I want to become like? If not, you may need to change your friend group. Now, number 11 says, live within your means. Tremendous advice here, whether it comes to finances or other areas. Proverbs 21:20 says, precious treasure and oil are in the wise man's dwelling, but a fool devours it all. And we see that in our culture where people are living off of debt. They're trying to impress people with what they have. Everything in our culture is pushing us toward overconsumption. We're bombarded with ads for you to get the latest and greatest thing. We don't want to be keeping up with the Joneses. You should live within your means. Tremendous biblical case there. Now, lastly, one more piece of advice. Be adaptable. That the world is unpredictable. This is the scripture that came to my mind on this topic. Ephesians 6:18, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints. This idea of being adaptable, I think, is tremendous advice for young men. You might think that your life is just going to be like this upward trajectory, but it is going to be full of tons of ups and downs. When we get out into the real world, we are going to get punched in the face. When we get punched in the face, we've got to get on our feet. We've got to keep moving. Don't let those difficult things that you've gone through keep you down. Well, there it is. There's Zuby's 12 rules for Gen Z men. Let me know in the comments which one sticks out to you and why. And is there any piece of advice that you would add? What do young men need to do today? Well, one great piece of advice here for young men as well would be to stay away from things like pornography. I'm going to link at the end of this video one of my other videos that talk about how do we get out of destructive behavior? How can we live like men of integrity? This is Jason for Soulfire. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'll catch you in the next one.